Hey guys, today we're going to talk about a term called mother hunger. So, this phrase actually comes from a book written by psychotherapist Kelly McDaniel. And it's a book she wrote about women who are still in need of nurture from a mother. But I love that term, mother hunger, because it gives language to something I think all humans experience at some level because our mothers weren't perfect. And so it reminds me of when I was little and a book that was read to me. The book was called Are You My Mother? And in it, there's a young dog who loses his mother for some reason, and he walks around looking for his mother, asking everything and everyone he finds, Are you my mother? And as a little kid, I really resonated with that. I think because I didn't feel like I really had a mother and I was desperate. I remember also as an adult when I experienced my second major depressive episode, the one that was catalyzed by shame. And I felt so alone during that time. It felt like loneliness was a presence that haunted me and ironically would not leave me alone. I remember during that time wanting every woman who was even slightly older than me to adopt me and nurture me. I just wanted to be understood. And for some reason, I never gave up the hope that someone would understand me someday. Although it seemed like none of the women I tried to be understood by ever did, including my therapist at that time. Instead of receiving attunement, which comes through deep listening and understanding, I received a lot of advice that was utterly irrelevant. I ended up listening to a lot of people who wanted to tell me how they could relate to my experience, even though what they shared proved to me that they couldn't relate to my particular experience. I was seeking nurture, which always entails listening, but ended up nurturing others and listening to them. As depressed and as alone I felt, I'm pretty sure this made me worse, not better. But what younger Bronwyn didn't know and would learn by necessity was that the only trustworthy source of nurture was her. The attachment figure that she was desperate for was herself. Over time, she learned to self-attune by reflecting on her feelings and understanding what prompted them and letting herself know that they mattered and they were valid. She learned to understand where her triggers stemmed from and how to integrate with her inner child by protecting, advocating for her, and giving her a voice. She learned to return the shame that she had felt to the people who gave it to her and to protect herself from other people who would attempt to give her their shame and to hold them accountable. She learned to channel her anger out of her body through boundaries, assertiveness, and accountability. She became stronger and stronger, and instead of seeking nurture from others, she was actually able to give it. It was quite a journey. As much as I would never want to repeat the suffering from that time, because it did also entail a suicide attempt, I am so grateful now that I made that journey because it was necessary to arrive at the place I am today. The truth is, I had to lose my whole world by allowing it to cave in on itself in order to save my own soul. It was a death of sorts, certainly a deconstruction. But would you believe that under all the rubble, I found myself? What nearly killed me allowed me to find myself at long last. And as painful and lonely as that journey was, I wouldn't trade it in for all the world. This journey changed the way I see suffering. I no longer feel despair for people in pain, although I still feel plenty of empathy. But I have learned by experience that everything in life is bittersweet, that there is no good experience that isn't accompanied by some kind of challenge, And conversely, there's no bad experience that doesn't also contain the potential for something incredible. The secret is to look beneath the icing on the cake and beneath the rubble, because there is always more than you expect. The relationship between good and evil isn't simple because there is synchronicity between them. Even the news, which is also very catastrophic and depressing, it hides the big picture. When we watch a community collapse due to a climate change fueled disaster, it is heartbreaking. Yet a couple months later, PBS will share a life-affirming story about one person in that community who went out of their way to help others at great cost and how it brought people together like never before. We witness this theme throughout human history, such as in our country, the United States, how the horrific era of the Gilded Age, when robber barons oppressed the majority of the rest of Americans, ultimately catalyzed the reformations brought by both Theodore and Franklin Delano Roosevelt that we still enjoy today, allowing the formation of the world's largest middle class and the labor and the civil rights movement. We can see how World War II paved the way for women to enter the workforce and ultimately for women's empowerment. I recently saw the musical called Parade, which is the story of Leo Frank and his unjust imprisonment and ultimate murder in Atlanta. It is a true heartbreaking story from the early 20th century in the South about anti-Semitism. Yet when I was in Atlanta last year, I learned that his murder galvanized the Jewish community there to preemptively join the civil rights movement, and that many synagogue leaders came together with Black ministers to work toward justice. My family supports an amazing organization called Plant with Purpose, which works to help marginalized rural communities through long-term ecosystem restoration. When I read facts about the places where this organization works, I get depressed. But when I read stories of how empowered rural farmers improve their environments and their lives, and how it usually ends civil conflict because more people have more to share and are sharing and there's less scarcity, tears roll down my face. These beautiful stories could not have been born without the ugly ones to lead the way. We all long for transformation, but we forget transformation begins from a place of pain and darkness. We all want transcendence, but are we willing to experience something that requires transcending from? Death ends in life, and any woman who's experienced childbirth knows this. Labor brings a woman to the end of herself, and the only escape from this death place is to birth something living and new right out of your body. We see this at work in nature, such as the darkness and the coldness of winter, yielding to spring every year faithfully. Why would human history be any different? Why would our individual lives not also adhere to this universal pattern? Hunger leads to fullness. Hope springs anew if you have eyes to see. Won't you open your eyes with me and see the hope and the beauty? Thank you for listening today.